So the court doesn't believe that Robert Shin has a case against me, nor would he win in any way, shape, or form.
Hey y'all, hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for stopping by Southern Mutton. So today we're going to do a quick overview of the files that have recently been filed in the defamation case of 7M Films versus Katie Joy Paulson. 7M Films, Robert Shin, James Derrick, and Miranda Derrick are suing Katie Joy Paulson of Without a Crystal Ball for defamation. Although you may hear me just refer to this case as 7M versus Katie Joy, although we know there are more plaintiffs, and it is Katie Mansky Paulson is her legal name of Without a Crystal Ball, WOACB. And as we all know, Katie Joy Paulson is adamant that she is going to win this lawsuit because she has been deemed a journalist by the courts, and also states that the judge believes that Robert Shin does not have a case against her and that it is too difficult for him to prove actual malice along with defamation. She's convinced that she's already won, y'all. But here's the latest update from the filings within this case. The latest filings that have been filed within the courts on July 11th appear to be only from 7M Films. However, that is why I'm here today, to see if maybe it is that Katie Joy Paulson has actually also filed a motion to compel, but we're just unable to see the documents. So bear with me. Now, if we go back to May, in the hearing that was held in May, Katie Joy Paulson's attorney had stated that 7M Films had failed to provide their discovery. That hearing was held on the 18th of May, but the deadline for discovery was not until May 31st. However, Katie Joy Paulson's attorney stated they will be filing a motion to compel for discovery, and the judge scheduled a motion to compel hearing for August 1st at 9 a.m. So the date to file those motions has passed, and on the 11th, 7M Films filed several documents, one being the motion to compel discovery responses. And I'm going to go over that motion here in just a little bit, briefly, as promised. But here's my question that I'm kind of realizing now. Did Katie Joy Paulson also file a motion to compel, and we just cannot see her documents? This is a question I have, so let's just jump right on into it. If you visit the website where you can retrieve the documents for this case, it shows the first filing labeled as index number 68 that was filed on July 11th of 2023, and it continues through all the filings that 7M filed on 7/11 of 2023 that you are able to view. Now I'm going to start at the bottom and scroll up, and I'll show you why I have the questions that I have. Here it shows the filings, and you're able to view these documents, which I have retrieved and viewed and read them all. And the motion to compel discovery responses is the main one that we'll be talking about. It includes Katie Joy's responses, which 7M does not feel are adequate, along with supporting documents to prove why they feel Katie Joy Paulson's responses are not adequate, accurate, and also why they do not feel that Katie Joy Paulson is a journalist. So on the website, we're able to view the documents starting at index number 68. But as we get up to index number 73, there are no viewable documents because index number 73 through index number 77 does not have the option to view that document. So when I was pulling up the documents prior to read and to do the video, I saw that there were these index numbers that were there that did not have the option to view the document. I think I just assumed that it might be an error, and because the names were the same, although the index numbers were different, I think I assumed that it was an error and they were just duplicate and that they would be corrected. And as we know, it's always a bad idea to assume. So following those 5 filings that we were unable to view the corresponding documents to, starting back at index number 78, we are starting to be able to view the documents again for these filings and their corresponding index numbers. This takes us to the last filing that was filed on July 11th of 2023, and its index number is number 82. I do want to add that in the past, starting from the very first filing that was filed, which was dated April 5th of 2022, starting at index number 1, there has not been any filings or any documents that have been uploaded that have not been able to be viewed until this occurred on July 11th. I will get to what that motion to compel discovery responses entailed, but first let me show you why I'm confused as to whether or not maybe Katie Joy Paulson has indeed filed her own motions and we are unaware of what they are. Because on July 18th of 2023, more documents were filed, and like some of the previous documents I showed you, there is not an option to view the document for that corresponding filing or that corresponding index number. So starting at index number 84, which was filed on July 18th of 2023, which is a responsive motion, which I would assume was filed by Katie Joy Paulson in response to 7M's motion to compel discovery responses that was filed on July 11th. However, could it be that it is 7M filing a responsive motion, that maybe Katie Joy Paulson did file a motion to compel or some other motion on 7/11, and that is one of the documents we are unable to view, and therefore this is a responsive motion by 7M on July 18th? That I do not know, but I do know that 7M paid a filing fee for both July 11th and July 18th, and Katie Joy Paulson only paid a filing fee for July 18th. Therefore, it's probably unlikely that Katie Joy Paulson did file anything on July 11th. Because I'm unable to view the documents, I'm going to stop right here with all speculation about who filed what and what it might include. But I do know that on July 11th, 7M Films did file their motion to compel discovery responses, along with Katie Joy Paulson's initial responses and why they filed a motion to compel to get the responses they feel they deserve in this case. So if I were to guess, and that's not something I like to do, but if I were to guess, Katie Joy Paulson did not file a motion to compel. Maybe that is because 7M Films complied to everything they needed to do and provided their discovery by the due date, by the deadline, which was May 31st, and Katie Joy Paulson no longer felt the need to file a motion to compel to get the discovery she originally stated 7M refused to provide. So unless the documents do show eventually on the website, we really won't know much about each of these filings and what they include and by which parties they were filed, or anything regarding Katie Joy Paulson's side of discovery until probably after the hearing, which is scheduled for August 1st. And, I think the question is, to me, why are these documents not being shown? Is there a reason? Has Katie Joy Paulson and her attorneys been able to convince the courts that these documents should not be public? I don't know. Has she provided something within these documents that could allow her to keep them from being public? That again, I don't know. But I will not speculate. And until we are able to view the documents and see Katie Joy Paulson's side of discovery outside of what 7M has stated, I will keep my lips zipped on this. But what I can show you and discuss are the filings that 7M filed on July 11th, which includes their motion to compel discovery responses, because after they received Katie Joy Paulson's answers to the first set of discovery on June 12th, the plaintiffs served their discovery deficiency letter to the defendants on July 7th. The plaintiffs state that counsel for plaintiffs have made a good faith effort to meet and confer with defendants to secure the requested information prior to making this motion to compel disclosures from defendants. They state that Katie's responses to discovery were deficient in 23 requests for production of documents and 36 interrogatories, and that defendants failed to provide even 1 page in response to plaintiff's request for production of documents. Not even 1 page, y'all. There were several documents filed by 7M on July 11th, of course, one being the motion to compel discovery responses. In addition to that, were supporting documents such as the plaintiff's first set of requests for production of documents, plaintiff's first set of interrogatories, along with Katie Joy's responses to 7M's request to produce documents, Katie's answers to 7M's interrogatories, along with a preserved letter that was sent to Katie Joy Paulson back in April of 2022 when 7M filed this lawsuit against her. And this letter states that she is not to destroy, discard, or delete any documents of any type. And it includes every type of document to not be deleted, which includes drafts, emails, instant messages, text messages, social media communications, etc., etc. It goes on and on. So the question is, does including this letter within these filings on July 11th show that they have proof that Katie Joy Paulson may have destroyed or discarded or deleted important relevant information in regards to this case? So let's take a look at this motion. Instead of referring to the motion itself, I think I'm going to refer mostly to this discovery deficiency letter that 7M's attorney sent Katie Joy's attorney in response to Katie Joy's responses to their discovery requests. So, of course, plaintiffs are going to request to see documents that relate to any claims and defenses alleged within this litigation. And Katie Joy Paulson objected as impermissibly vague and protected by journalists' privilege. And this is where 7M is like, whoa, to a few things. And they state, if defendants are unclear as to what relates to the lawsuit, they are welcome to research the rules of civil procedures and discovery to deduce what is relevant and discoverable. Katie Joy is basically saying, from that statement is saying, I'm not going to provide anything, in my opinion. Regarding Katie Joy Paulson's statement that she is a journalist and therefore protected by journalistic privilege, they state, it is plaintiff's contention that defendants are not journalists and therefore they cannot assert journalistic privilege. Defendants have failed to move the court for a designation as a journalist. As defendants have failed to protect any alleged privilege as a journalist in the past year of litigation, it is improper to use an alleged journalistic privilege to shield them from complying with any discovery in this action. Request 2. When the plaintiffs requested all documents referenced in responding to interrogatories, defendants responded that they had linked digital copies in their posts. And 7M responds, merely directing plaintiffs to defendants' posts is not a sufficient answer in this request. And there's this one, y'all. When the plaintiffs requested defendants produce all social media posts defendants have made regarding 7M Films or their affiliates, defendants did not object. However, they responded by saying they do not know what affiliates means. 7M's attorney then offers the dictionary definition of affiliates, just to remind them, and then states, as counsel for defendants has repeatedly stated, she has decades of experience in litigation stating they do not understand what the word affiliates means or how it is connected to 7M Films Inc. is not persuasive. In regards to interrogatory number 6, the plaintiffs requested all social media posts regarding Melanie Wilking, which is one of the plaintiffs, Miranda Derrick's sister, and or her affiliates from January 2020 to the present. Defendants objected as Melanie Wilking is a non-party. However, Katie Joy Paulson had a lot of communication with Miranda Derrick's family, and this whole lawsuit basically came about because Katie Joy Paulson had communication with Melanie's family that provided her the initial idea that Miranda was indeed in a cult. In request 9 for documents, defendants were asking Katie Joy to produce all drafts of social media posts that she had made regarding 7M Films, and Katie Joy objected on the grounds of relevance. And then in request 11 for documents, plaintiffs requested all correspondence in which Katie Joy had discussed 7M Films and its affiliates with third parties, and Katie Joy Paulson objected as material protected by journalistic privilege. And 7M, I guess, wants to remind them that, as previously stated, defendants do not qualify as journalists and are therefore not entitled to any journalistic privilege. And that journalistic privilege is narrowly applied to sources of information to journalists, not to all persons whom a journalist contacts regarding an issue. Further, if defendants were themselves a source of legitimate news organization, they do not qualify as a journalist, but a source, and must disclose that information. In request 17, the plaintiffs asked for tax documents from Katie Joy from January 2020 to the present, and Katie Joy objected as to relevance. And 7M states, if defendants have sustained an increase in revenue as a result of their disparagement of plaintiffs, that monetization is relevant, and it shows motive for Katie's continued assault on all of the plaintiffs' character. In request 19, the plaintiffs requested all contracts that Katie Joy had entered with third parties regarding plaintiffs and the Shekinah Church, and defendants objected as the contract contained confidentiality clauses. But defendants are stating that she showed no true case law to support that. But in addition to that, they state that in response to the interrogatories, defendants claimed they were unaware of anyone they had made contact with regarding plaintiffs, and that they did not keep any such records. So 7M points out that if Katie Joy, in fact, does have records, it appears that she would have lied under oath in her discovery responses, which constitutes perjury. In request 21, plaintiffs requested all communication regarding the production of an HBO documentary regarding plaintiffs, and Katie Joy, of course, objected due to journalistic privilege. So 7M reminds Katie Joy's attorneys that they feel Katie Joy is not a journalist, and that if the defendants have given information to HBO or its affiliates for the purpose of creating a documentary, it is assumed that contract had some sort of monetary consideration, and to them that states a motive. So in the second interrogatory, 7M requests that Katie Joy let them know of anyone that may have knowledge of discoverable information relevant to this lawsuit, and Katie Joy objected on the basis of journalistic privilege. And 7M wants to remind them that the defendant is not a journalist. And one reason why they state that is, quote, many of her social media posts involve her consuming alcohol to the point of slurred speech while discussing her personal opinions on topics like religion, This is not typical of journalists reporting for the New York Times or even a local news source like the Star Tribune. Further, even if defendants were journalists, they are not precluded from identifying anyone with whom they are aware may have information. 7M states again that, it has been a year since the start of litigation and numerous discovery motions, and defendants have not made a motion to request a judicial finding from the court that Katie Joy is in fact a journalist or that she is entitled to journalistic privilege. Skipping to Interrogatory 7, plaintiffs request that Katie give each statement that she has ever made about a person, entity, organization, etc., for which the defendant did not have verification of facts from the person or entity whom the statement was made about from January 2020 to the present. And defendants objected to the interrogatory as overly broad and burdensome. So 7M continues to state that Katie Joy has been the subject of numerous lawsuits for false and unverified statements about third parties. And the total amount of frequency of the statements for which defendants have made false or unverified statements is highly relevant to this lawsuit. If the interrogatory is overly broad and burdensome, it is only because Katie has a regular habit of making false and unverified statements. Interrogatory number 9, y'all. 7M is asking Katie Joy Paulson to disclose how many followers she has purchased since the beginning of January 2020. And Katie Joy objected for relevance. But 7M states that this lawsuit is based on Katie's false and defamatory statements. So Katie has claimed that she's a journalist instead of a social media personality. And purchased followers are relevant to Katie's claimed status as a journalist, as well as to the extent of the dissemination of her false and defamatory statements about plaintiffs. It's a question I have too, y'all. I really want to know how many of Katie Joy's followers have been purchased. Interrogatory 14 is regarding Melanie Kelly and Dean Wilking, which is Miranda Derrick's family. And Katie, opposed on the grounds that they are not parties in this lawsuit. But let's keep in mind that this is where the information originally came from. They are the ones that, quote unquote, reached out to Katie Joy Paulson in the very beginning of all of this. So we'll see how this pans out. But in my opinion, I think they're quite relevant. For Interrogatory 16, it doesn't state what the question was or what the request was, but basically it was asking Katie Joy Paulson to provide the name, address, and contact information to anyone that she had disclosed or discussed information regarding all of the plaintiffs and their affiliates and the date that she had done so, etc. And again, she objected on the grounds of journalistic privilege. Here's what I wanted to point out mainly for this interrogatory is they refer to the letter from April 6th of 2022 that 7M had sent Katie Joy Paulson when they sued her, the preservation letter stating her duty to retain all documents and information regarding the plaintiffs. And the plaintiffs had already commenced this lawsuit, so therefore Katie Joy Paulson was aware of her duty to preserve information. But they're saying it appears that Katie has purposefully destroyed documents and have either conveniently forgot or purposefully did not retain information. They state that defendants must answer this interrogatory or plaintiffs will reserve all legal options to enforce their right, compel all discovery, and make whatever motions are necessary for defendants' purposeful destruction of evidence. Interrogatory 17. 7M Films asked Katie Joy where she was provided the information to support her statement that 7M Films' Robert Shin is involved in human trafficking. Interrogatory 18, Katie Joy is asked to reveal where she received the information to support her statement that 7M Films is indeed a cult. In response to both of those interrogatories, Katie Joy Paulson says she received that information by reviewing past lawsuits involving Robert Shin, but this was before 7M was even in existence. For interrogatories 19 through 24, I'm not going to read them out in full, so feel free to pause and read as you wish. For each one of these interrogatories, it is regarding a statement that Katie Joy Paulson has made about 7M or any of the plaintiffs. Here, 7M is requesting that Katie Joy Paulson reveal where she received the information to support each one of these statements. Katie Joy objected to all these interrogatories on the basis of journalistic privilege. To follow are a few requests for admission that Katie Joy Paulson did object to. The first being the plaintiffs requested Katie to admit that she stated 7M Films is a cult and that she stated that on Instagram. And Katie really never admitted, denied, nor did she qualify the answer, but she basically stated that her posts speak for themselves. So a separate request for admission was 7M requesting Katie Joy to admit that she discouraged others from joining 7M Films. Katie Joy objected and stated basically that all of her posts on Instagram speak for themselves. In another request, the plaintiffs requested that Katie Joy admit that she had purchased social media followers. Katie Joy objected to this as to unlimited in time and scope and to relevance. 7M states here that Katie Joy has touted throughout this lawsuit that she is a reporter, and her follower count proves that. Her history of potentially purchasing followers or not is highly relevant to Ms. Paulson's classification of herself as a reporter as well as her credibility. In another request, 7M requested Katie to admit that she provided false information about plaintiffs to third parties. Katie Joy has denied to the extent that she had no basis to believe that statements were false. 7M states that Katie has failed to answer this request in good faith, and they say that they did not ask Katie if she knew she was providing false information to third parties. They asked her if she had provided false information to third parties. Another request was for Katie to admit that she called for their followers to boycott 7M Films. Katie Joy objected and stated the posts speak for themselves. So again, she's not admitting or denying, she's just saying, go look at my posts on Instagram. Another request was that 7M asked Katie Joy to admit her statements about plaintiffs and fasting were her own thoughts after viewing a paid sponsorship with Do Fasting app. Katie objected to this request as to the form, as it was not a fair paraphrase of what she might have stated. No statements were made in this request, merely designation of a subject matter and the potential source for that information. So 7M states that it appears defendants were merely copying and pasting their answers and did not properly respond to the request. In this last request, 7M requested Katie Joy admit that after being informed that her statements regarding plaintiffs were untrue, she did not issue a retraction. After Katie Joy made certain statements on her Instagram, Miranda Derrick herself had reached out and said, "You were incorrect. I'm not in a cult. I am fine." Outside of that, Katie Joy Paulson had received 2 cease and desist letters from 7M Films stating that what she was saying was not true, it was indeed false, and they had asked her to remove all statements. Instead, what Katie Joy Paulson did was show what Miranda Derrick had stated as being false. She mocked Miranda Derrick by putting up statements Miranda Derrick said as Miranda Derrick not knowing what she was saying to be true because she was in fact brainwashed by 7M and Robert Shin. So instead of retracting statements that she were told were false, she mocked these quote unquote victims, the ones that Katie Joy labeled as victims. Katie Joy mocked them by posting their responses instead of just removing the material and verifying that it was indeed not true. So there you have it, y'all. That is a very quick breakdown of what was filed by 7M. Clearly, I left out certain details. I did not include everything, but wanted to point out what I thought was pretty relevant in this, and also to state that 7M seemed pretty perturbed that they even had to file this motion to compel to get her responses. Therefore, they are requesting that Katie Joy Paulson reimburse them for the attorney's fees that it took to file this motion. Also, let's keep in mind, Katie Joy Paulson is still adamant that she is a journalist. It sounds like 7M is really pushing the fact with the courts that she is not, and they're given the reasons as to why they believe she is not. So we'll see what happens. And again, this is all 7M's side. We don't see anything from Katie Joy Paulson yet, but as soon as anything changes, if we are able to view these documents, whatever it may be, it might not be that we know anything until after this hearing, that it will be held on August 1st. I will keep you updated for anything that changes. And until then, y'all, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for stopping by.